Good here. Here we go. Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. Along with the founder and co-host of 100 Yards, we've got Vincent Turner, and to my left, your left, our left, my right, your left, Brian LeBel. Brian, we're going to talk about Big Ten football here. We're missing Dave Hoffman again. Dave's on assignment. Vincent, I know he's not making enough money to give up his regular job to come over here and do this, but we miss Dave. Obviously, his input, and more importantly, his Huskies. It was a closer game than I think what the final score was. They gave the Ohio State Buckeyes a run for their money. They just struggled offensively. What was it, 24-6 the final? Huskies are for real. I think they're still going to be around. First and foremost, any thoughts? We'll start with you, Vincent, on last week's games. Remember, Oregon and Penn State played in a classic, a great game up there. If you're a Duck fan, quack, quack, you're going to love it. Anything else that was of excitement for you in Big Ten football last week? Vincent, we'll start with you.
Do y'all want me to be honest about myself? Y'all know I'm real, right?
I know you're a liar, so we don't know
Okay.
if you're going to be honest or not. It's
Well,
also
I'm
doggone
gonna
true.
put it to you, Mr. LeBel. Stop the madness. Washington came in that game averaging almost 50 points a game. Ohio State defensively dominated them. No disrespect to you, Mr. Hoffman, but I was really expecting Washington to really step up offensively because you averaged almost 50 points a game. And then, of course, Oregon and Penn State. I got to give Penn State a lot of credit. They showed a lot of heart coming back down 17-3 in the fourth quarter and taking that game into overtime because they played horrible for 3 quarters, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But however, my man, pretty boy James Franklin, you didn't get the job done, baby. You 4-22 against the top 25 since you've been at Penn State. Back to you, Hop and Brad. You're 4-22, baby. Time for you to win a big game.
Numbers don't lie, do they?
No, sir.
Numbers don't lie. Brian, your thoughts from last week? Anything in particular for you?
Well, I mean, at some point, I want to see James Franklin beat a top 25 team, right? I know you inclusion of Oregon and Washington, all these other teams coming over from the West Coast, but man, I think they're on the cusp. You know what I mean? At least being a contender, but it just seems every single year it's either Michigan or Ohio State or Oregon now, or just somebody's just a little bit better, and it's common practice. And they're still winning 9, 10, 11 games, right? So it's not sitting here like they're bad, but it's just you're not good enough, and it's just you got to get over the hump. It's like with Ryan Day last year, right? They couldn't beat Michigan. You got guys that are graduating who have never beat Michigan. They finally get over it. They win a national championship. It's just I'm just waiting to see the same thing from Penn State because that just seems to be it's becoming a trend and it's not a good one.
There are folks that are in Ohio that would rather beat Michigan and not play in the national championship than have it be the other way around. They lose to Michigan, and I remember listening to certain fans on whether we radio call-ins or even interviews. They go, no, that's it. I'm done. What if you win the national championship? You got a great team. I don't care. We lost to the Wolverines. I don't care. Woody would walk back across the state line to get a gallon of gas to put in his car if he ran out because he would not do anything. He would not give the state of Michigan any of his commerce. He wouldn't do it. So it's goofy, but I think the national championship is a little bit more important than winning the Michigan-Ohio State game. But what do I know? Let's look at some of the Big Ten stuff. Guys, are any of you surprised that Indiana and Oregon are 2-0? They're both undefeated at 5-0, but Maryland, Ohio State, Michigan, and Minnesota are all four of them. They're undefeated as well. They're 1-0. Does any of that catch you at this point of the season as being a little bit of a surprise?
I'm surprised a little bit at Maryland. Mike Losky, I knew he had a good football team, but he's starting a true freshman quarterback, and they undefeated. I'm surprised there. But the first game I think we're going to cover, Wisconsin and Michigan. I really thought Wisconsin, Luke Fickell would go in there and have Wisconsin being a team that we talking about at the top of the Big Ten, but he's struggling. And it looks like if he don't get it together, he might be the next coach that's going to be fired on the college football level.
Well, Michigan is 3-1. Minnesota's 3-1. Everybody else is undefeated, meaning Ohio State, Maryland, Oregon, and Indiana. They're either 4 and 5-0. Brian, what about this? So Michigan State, Nebraska, Penn State, and Washington, and then throw in Purdue. But the first four that I mentioned, they're all 3-1, and they all have one conference loss. Is it crunch time to where they have to win, or else it's over if they get a second loss? Or could there be a little bit of leeway with the way that the conference is set up right now, and you might be able to play for a championship with 2 losses?
It's going to be tough, especially because the people at the top right now, like the Ohio States, the Oregons, the Penn States, they only have 1 or 2 games on the schedule that you really look at and say this is going to be a challenge, right? So there's not a lot of opportunities to make a mistake and to get back in. Now you could still be talking college football playoff, but that's really tough to do if you're not making your conference championship game, unless it's a bad tiebreaker and you blow everybody else out. But there's not a lot of wiggle room this year. There just really isn't, because it's just. We used to make fun of the SEC, right? Because they cannibalize each other, right? You say, hey, everybody's playing everybody's kind of beating each other up. And the Big Ten's kind of said, hey, we don't really have to do that, especially at the beginning, right? We'll ease everybody in. We're adding all these new teams in the conference, and let's get as many teams to the playoff as we can, hoping that, the record shows that. But it's going to be tough. The ACC slipping up a little bit. Some of the teams that were at the top who you thought could be playoff contenders are kind of slipping, like Clemson. There's no way they get in now. Florida State coming off a loss, and now they got to go play Miami. But it's just, you're not really seeing the cannibalization that you're used to seeing in some of these college football games. But then again, conference play just started, and you got a lot of teams like Minnesota. I'm excited. I don't think they'll win this week, but I'm excited to see how close they are to Ohio State. You know what I mean? They've done really well defensively, keeping opponents from scoring. They've scored well themselves. But it's most of these teams have 1 or 2. I think 2 is the max number of conference games we have so far. We haven't really played very many yet. So we're just now starting to get into it. So we can kind of look back on this in 3 or 4 weeks. In my opinion, that might change, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look and see where we stand right now at the games. We've looked a little bit at the standings, and the first one that we'll take is this noon game here. Wisconsin Badgers end up going to Michigan. This is a 12 o'clock kick. It'll be on Fox. Michigan is 3-1. 2-2 Wisconsin. Vincent, we'll start with you. What do the Badgers have to do? They've got to be able to stop the run, and they've got to be able to run themselves. But I don't know if they've got the firepower to get either one of those taken care of.
I think they're going to have to be able to run the football, control the clock, and limit the possessions. I think that's where we got to go. Remember, they played Alabama 2 weeks ago, and they was in that game early, and then Alabama started really hitting them for big plays. You got a Michigan team. Bryce Underwood seemed like he's kind of finding himself a little bit. And let's give shout-outs to Justin Haynes. He's up there from where y'all gentlemen from in Bruford. And at Alabama, I don't know how in the world they did not use him, but now we see the type of talent he is. First-round NFL talent. He's running the ball for Michigan. Back to you, Hart.
After 4 games, Brian, Danny O'Neal, he's got 640 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Is that who we're going to see at the end of the year, or is this sophomore from Indianapolis going to probably find a way on the bench if he throws 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions and stays even with par with what he's been doing against Michigan?
Well, they're 89th in total passing, they're 110th in rushing, and they're 111th in points for.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you got to kind of do something, right? You got to flip a switch. It doesn't really get much worse than that. The defense has done a decent job, right? They're not phenomenal, but they're top 40 as far as points allowed, which is what's kept them in games. They really could be worse than they are right now at 2-2. But I think on the flip side, if you look at Michigan, this is kind of I think Bryce Underwood kind of needs a get-right game, right? He hasn't really done a whole heck of a lot. Haven't really seen the flashes. Everyone talked about coming into the season how good he was, and he's still very, very young and he's got to develop. But I think this is one of those games where he has an opportunity against a team, because I think Michigan's a top 10 running team, right? That's their identity. That's what they're going to want to do. Yeah. I think for him, maybe start introducing some more play action, maybe some vertical passing attack stuff, because they haven't really done anything thus far. But at a certain point, if they want to win, if they want to compete with the Ohio States and the Oregons, they're going to have to.
Yeah, last year, gosh, they had one of the worst throwing statistical team averages in the game. And you wouldn't expect that. But, they ran a lot. Notre Dame ran a lot, and they ended up getting the national championship game.
They're 106th again this year. Yeah. But they're top 10 in rushing. So it balances out, right? But if you're Wisconsin, the other end, they're 90th or lower in both stats. So it's kind of tough.
All right. Well, this game, again, this is at noon. Again, 3-1 Michigan taking on the 2-2 Wisconsin Badgers. That game will be in Ann Arbor. Next game we're going to look at, just found out that Purdue and West Lafayette will be hosting the Big Ten Network pregame show, which is kind of like their version of College Game Day. They'll be there on campus for this one. Illinois comes in 4-1, Brian. They're number 22 in the country. It's not just where they are right now. Next week they play Ohio State, but for the rest of the season, they've taken care of all of the ranked opponents. They don't have anything except for Ohio State. I know there are a lot of folks saying that they had a chance to be playing in the Big Ten championship. I don't know. It's way too early for that, but because if you look at the schedule and what's ahead of them, if they beat Purdue and just play well against Ohio State, that Nostradamus prediction might just come true.
This looks like a team that could very easily run the table, like you said, if not for Ohio State, right? And then again, you never know. It might be a slip-up game for the Buckeyes. Illinois is a good team, and a lot of people thought they were good coming into the season. That's why a lot of people had them say, hey, this is, come December, come January, this is a team that could be still playing meaningful football, so watch out. And Indiana just kind of came out, kind of flash in the pan. I don't think anybody was really expecting that. They kind of caught them off guard, and they're a very good football team themselves, so watch out for them. But Illinois, the pressure's kind of off, though, right? I know eyeballs will be on them, not this week. I'm sure many people, at least the Illinois faithful, are thinking this should be an easy game for us, a tune-up game, right? Don't look ahead to Ohio State, but let's take care of business against Purdue, and then let's see where we go from there. But this is still a team that I think can contend. But like I said earlier, it's just there's not a lot of games on everybody's schedule that you circle and say, hey, this could go either way. This could be a tough game, whatever. So it's going to be uphill sledding for the Illini. I think they take care of business this week, obviously, but going forward, we'll see.
Vincent, part of the schedule that I mentioned, I pulled this up while Brian was talking. 2 weeks ago, they lose to Indiana. Last week, they beat SC. So of the two, they split. I'm imagining they probably would have loved to have beaten Indiana from a recruiting perspective first, but they play Purdue now. Ohio State is next week, and they're number 1 in the country. Then at Washington, Rutgers, Maryland, Wisconsin, and Northwestern. Currently, none of those teams, with the exception of Ohio State, are ranked. Now, maybe Maryland will sneak in by that time. I'm not sure, but Washington they slipped out of the top 25. With the carnage that goes on in the Big Ten Conference, is there an easier path to get to the championship game than what Illinois has right now?
I would say this. I'm very proud of the Fighting Illini football team. 2 weeks ago, you get Rome by 63-10. There was a lot of people saying Illinois, oh man, they overrated. They don't belong in the upper echelon of the Big Ten. But I'm gonna tell you, I gained a lot of respect how they came back and played against USC, a red-hot USC team that had came off a 45-31 win over Michigan State. And that was the USC team that was a lot of people saying, hey, they can challenge for a little bit in the Big Ten. That's what I'm proud of. That's what I say championship football. You get beat 63-10. Think about that, gentlemen. That's 53 points there. That's hard to come back. And they came back and won that football game on the last field goal. I think they're going to roll against Purdue tomorrow. I agree with Brian. They're going to play Ohio State to the vest. They run the table. I wouldn't mind saying they can earn a college football playoff berth. That's a good football team. They just had, I think, an off night against Indiana. It happens like that. Back to you, Hop.
Well, my guy is Luke Altmaier, 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. He has been sacked 17 times. I think that's a little high. They've got 10 rushing touchdowns, but 12 in the air. Hank Beatty, 27 receptions for him, 14.2 yards per. He's got a touchdown. But the real guy, Justin Bowick, he's got 4 touchdowns. He's the guy that basically you're going to go deep with, or at least try to, get the ball to him in the red zone. But Illinois ends up at Purdue. Again, this game will be in terms of a BTN, Big Ten Network game. It'll be one that they want to feature. And for obvious reasons, the 4-1 Illini go to visit Purdue. Next game we're going to look at, this will be a rebound game for Penn State. We were talking about Pretty Boy. Is that what you called him, Vincent? You called him Pretty Boy. If you can't get it right against UCLA and the way that they're playing right now, something's terribly wrong. But they got to go out to Los Angeles. Last year they played SC out there in what, a double overtime game? It was single,
Mm.
wasn't it? It was single overtime, but I think they'll fare much better at the Rose Bowl here this week. What are your thoughts here about Penn State?
Bounce back game should have no problems. I think Drew Allar's going to pad his stats. Um, what more can you say? Penn State should win this game at least by 3 touchdowns. I'm just going to put it, going to be a heavy number betting wise. But the thing that I have when I look at this football game, what has happened to the UCLA football program? You look at all the great players in here: Kenny Easley, Troy Aikman, Randy Cross, Jonathan Ogden, Jerry Robinson, Mercedes Lewis. Then he won a national championship in 1954. Gary Beeman, Mel Farr Jr. This don't supposed to be happening to a program like this, man. I'm sorry. Gonna be very interesting to see what they're gonna do going forward because they might not win a game for the rest of the year. And then I know y'all don't feel well. I kind of feel sorry for Nico I because he was at Tennessee last year, but I know a lot of people don't. But see, Nico I'm gonna look you dead in the screen. Sometimes the grass is not green on the other side, my man. Back to you, Harp.
Well, let's look at this. You look at the schedule. They got Penn State ranked number 7 in the country. I'm talking about the Bruins right now. They lost 17-14 to Northwestern. They lost all of their non-conference game to Utah, UNLV, and New Mexico. Here's their upcoming schedule. Michigan State, they're 3-1. Maryland is undefeated right now at 4-0. Indiana is undefeated at 5-0. Then they got Nebraska. They're 3-1. Ohio State's undefeated at 5-0. Washington is the only team that it's around. They're 3-1, and then USC is 3-1. Brian, where do the Bruins go right now? It's like they're at the bottom of the lake and they're breathing out of a straw. Sitting down with all that air in front. What do they do?
Well, the games, you only got so many games left in this season, I guess. That's the silver lining. But we said last week, they played Northwestern tough. We knew that was kind of a toss-up game. But I think I came on and I said, hey, maybe we just try to find out what we have, going forward. Because at this point, you don't really have much to lose, right? Playoffs are out of the question. You can win the rest of your games, and you're still not going to play for a conference championship or a bowl game before Christmas Day. I think for them, it's just kind of figure out what you have. Maybe trying to establish an identity and say, okay, we need to right the ship and show new recruits, guys are coming in next year and beyond. Hey, listen, this is a fluke. This isn't part of our culture. This isn't what we do. We're going to try to get it figured out. We're going to right the ship, and we'll be back. They won't be back this week, I don't think, in any capacity. I think Penn State will probably beat up on them a little bit. But, if you're looking down the stretch for Penn State, they got UCLA. I think they got Iowa. I'm not sure if it's Northwestern. And they got Ohio State and Indiana back-to-back. So for them, they're coming in here. They're saying, hey, listen, we're coming off a tough loss, a conference loss in a game that we were favored in, and we really would have liked to have won. And we got to kind of get ready for this stretch. Don't overlook UCLA, but I think this is a tune-up game. This is a get-right game. Like Vincent said, I don't think it's going to be particularly close. 3 scores doesn't seem even, remotely crazy when talking about the spread here. But, UCLA's got a lot of stuff they got to figure out, and, hopefully for their sake they do.
This game against UCLA will be at 3:30 Eastern, so it's a 12 o'clock kick out in California, early morning for everybody. Northwestern is next for Penn State. Then, as you mentioned, Brian, they go to Iowa. They go to Columbus to play Ohio State. They get Indiana at home. They got to go to East Lansing to play Michigan State, and then Nebraska and at Rutgers to round out their season. So they still have 2 ranked opponents right now, and possibly another later on. But that they don't have to tune up the same way as some of the other schools, the way they are right now. Another 3:30 game, the University of Washington will be traveling after that tough loss at home to Ohio State. They go to Maryland. Maryland's undefeated. Vincent, let's start with the Terps. 4-0 right now. Are they quietly winning this game and then going to sneak into the top 25 with the talent that they have right now? Or are they going to yell and scream and kick and hold their breath and turn blue in the face until they get into the top 25 if they end up being 5-0 and nobody's recognizing them?
To be honest, I'm very surprised at Maryland. Didn't expect them to even be undefeated this time, and they're doing it with a true freshman quarterback, Malik Washington. A lot of people haven't heard. You think about the quarterback position coming into college football. We talk about Arch Manning. We talk about Garrett Nussmeier, Cabe Klubnik. But quietly, this gentleman right here, 18 years old, has got the Maryland Terps undefeated. Now, this is a huge football game from my perspective because if Maryland wins this football game, maybe everybody gonna lean back and say, "Oh, look what Mike Lonsky is doing there up there at College Park, former assistant under Nick Saban." Now, for Washington, Mr. Hoffman, if you're watching, this is a critical game for y'all, man, because last week y'all laid the egg against Ohio State. And a lot of people up there in the Northwest say y'all got a nationally ranked team that should be a college football playoff team. This is a big football game for the Washington Huskies. But I'm very surprised in Maryland, and I like what Maryland's doing, and they're doing it with a true freshman quarterback. Back to you, Hawk.
Yeah, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, only 1 sack. Are you impressed with that, Brian, for a kid that basically was playing in high school last year?
Well, if you look at Maryland, I mean, I want to say they're top 40 in passing yards, so just under 270 yards a game. The defense for them has been spectacular. They're giving up just shy of 11 points a game. I think their worst defensive output as far as scoring this year was against Townsend, if I'm not mistaken. They gave 17 to them, and that's kind of skewed it. But they've been spectacular. Really, the defense has done a great job setting up the offense, good field position, getting off the field. You can't really ask much more for them. And if you're in a position where you got a young quarterback, that's exactly what you need. You know, a kid that can come out here, he can kind of play freely. He, in the back of his mind, he doesn't want to, but he knows he can make a mistake, right, and slip up. And the guys on the other side, the other 11, have his back. So, I think they're favored in this game. I think Maryland's I don't know if they're a force to be reckoned with yet. I mean, look, they're not ranked yet for a reason. A lot of people kind of want to see what they're going to do in conference first. And I think this is their, if this is their year where they're going to say, hey, we can contend for a Big Ten championship, and maybe we're playing there in December, this could be their coming out party against Washington. On the flip side, like we mentioned, the Huskies, they got a good football team. Ohio State is ranked number 1 for a reason. They're very, very good. The litmus test was really, though, that they're 3 scores worse than those guys, and they got to figure it out if they want to make some noise themselves. So I think this is 2 teams that have a lot to prove, and I think it's going to be a very good football game.
Florida Atlantic, Northern Illinois, Townsend, and Wisconsin are the first 4 games that Maryland has played. You mentioned their defense and how good they are. They got 16 sacks.
Yeah.
In 4 games. I'm not very smart, but that's 4 a game. Now, against the first 3 opponents, I can expect, the numbers are going to be real high. But here's why I'm intrigued. Washington is this week. Nebraska at home. They go out to California. They play UCLA. Then they've got Indiana. Rutgers is struggling. They played 22nd ranked Illinois. Michigan is number 20, and then they finish against Michigan State. That's not a bad Big Ten schedule, if you ask me, right? You only have 3 ranked opponents that you have to face when you've got about 8 that are ranked in the coaches poll. Very interesting take on that. Final thoughts before we go to the next game. Anyone?
The only team right now they have on their schedule in the top 20 is Indiana. So
yeah,
Illinois showed they're beatable. Michigan, again, listen, that Michigan game would be a great matchup for them. I know we're looking ahead, but they do a very good job against the run. They keep you out of the end zone. Michigan's got a young quarterback, a team. That's what they want to do. They want to run the ball. They want to score points, and they want to control the line of scrimmage. I think that game, looking ahead, I think it's going to be 2 of the young quarterbacks in this conference that are going to be doing really, really well for a long time. But if they can win this week, watch out for the Terps.
Yeah, College Park, Maryland, 3:30 on the Big Ten Network. You've got a pretty big game right there if you beat the University of Washington Huskies. Next one we're going to look at, UL Monroe, Sunbelt team. They're 3-1, though. They're going to go to 2-2 Northwestern. This is another 3:30 game that will be in Chicago. I'm going to just say there are not a whole lot of folks that are probably going to be at this game, right? They're all talking about the Cubs, whether it be the Blackhawks or the Bears or the White Sox. There'll be some folks, don't get me wrong, in Evansville, but this is one of those ones that, if you ask me, I think the ULM Warhawks might have a chance to do something great, for their school and for their university. They've been playing better last couple of years. Am I wrong, Vincent? Tell me I'm just out of my mind, or is Northwestern, they're 2-2. They haven't really impressed anybody, and they haven't impressed me.
Of course, you're right, Mr. LeBel. Northwestern has struggled this year. And like I said, that school hasn't been right since Pat Fitzgerald stepped down as the head coach. Let's be honest. UAM got an excellent chance of upsetting Northwestern. I like their running back, Braylon McReynolds. He's got 317 yards on the year. They're 3-1. They're playing the Northwestern team. They're struggling at the quarterback position. I thought when Preston Stone came over from SMU as a transfer, I thought he was going to be a pretty good player for Northwestern, but that hasn't happened. And all I can say is what I remember me of Northwestern, how Tulane dominated them. Tulane dominated them. So of course
Yeah.
you're right, Mr. LeBel. ULM has got an excellent chance to win this football game. And that being said, Northwestern better lace them chin straps up because they're gonna play a team that has nothing to lose. Back
Yep.
to you, Mr. LeBel.
And they play Northwestern Wildcats play Penn State, Purdue, Nebraska, USC, Michigan, Minnesota, and they close out against Illinois in their rivalry game. Brian, give me your thoughts here about Northwestern taking on a Sun Belt team.
The passing attack has been lackluster to say the least, right? They're only at 164 yards a game. I know Vincent alluded to Preston Stone. I mean, he's got 4 touchdowns and 6 interceptions as of right now. The
Mhm.
turnover, it's not necessarily the touchdowns you can kind of live with. The defense is playing well enough to where, it's not too bad, but they're turning the ball over a lot, which is something you can't really do. If you're Northwestern, I think this is a game you have to win. And if you're Louisiana Monroe, I think this is a game where you circle like, hey, we could take a Power 5 team. We could go in there and possibly beat these guys, and that's going to help them in recruiting. So they're going to play their tails off. This
Mhm.
is not going to be an easy game by any stretch if you're Northwestern, and I think they're going to have to come out and they're going to have to establish the run. They're going to have to do something they haven't done all year, which is not turn the football over, and they're going to be efficient. Otherwise, like Vincent said, I think Louisiana Monroe could very easily come in here and steal this game.
Yeah, if it were a Appalachian State, James Madison, or maybe Louisiana, I'd be a lot more confident. I'm just not quite sure yet what ULM has, but the Warhawks, again, they'll be there at 3:30 on the BTN network. Next game we're going to talk about. This one was, a couple years ago. This would have been great, but we're looking at Michigan State. They're 3-1. Nebraska's 3-1. I'm not in a winner take all yet, but this will be an interesting game, at least in my opinion. I think Nebraska has done everything that they can, and Coach Rule and some of the changes that they've had to make to be Nebraska again. Are they close, Vincent? Is one of those things that they're just a weight room guy away where they need another Dave Remington or not Shoemaker. What was his name? The great lineman, the Outland Trophy winner.
Steinkooler, I
Steinkooler,
think.
that's right, Dean
Yeah,
Steinkooler. Gosh,
yeah.
man, they just produced a plethora, if you will. It was an offensive lineman factory for years at Nebraska. They're not there yet, but getting a win against Michigan State will certainly help put them in the right direction.
When I think about Nebraska football, and you mentioned a point, Harp, that they're going to get back to where they need to be. I don't think that's going to happen because of the NIL. Oregon is now joining the conference. There's too many good teams. But they paid Matt Rule a lot of money to bring him back. Actually got fired at Carolina, so I don't know why they would bring him back. But when you think about Nebraska football, one thing that was good about Nebraska back in the day under Bob Devaney and Tom Osborne, good offensive line play, power football, running backs, in defense. I believe they call them the black shirts. When you look at this football game, though, this is a winnable game for Nebraska. Because Michigan State, I don't think they're there yet. Their quarterback is up and down. Adam Childs, who a lot of people thought was going to be a big player. Jonathan Smith brought him on from Oregon State with him. But this is a game I think Nebraska should win based on the fact what I seen what Michigan State did 2 weeks ago against USC. And you know what that was? They did not stop USC not one bit. USC went up, down the field, and scored 45 points. Back to you, Hawk.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment there with they weren't able to stop SC out there in Los Angeles, but uh, I'm just not sure about their offense. I don't know. Quarterback play is so important. I think they're average at best, Brian. Am I wrong?
Well, Charles has been okay, but when you have the ability as a punter on the opposing team to say, "Hey, man, I'm going to get the day off. I'm not going to have to walk on the field, but maybe once or twice all day." That's not something that you're
Wait a second.
you're really
You'll
happy
have to
with.
hold. Most punters are holders
Well,
there for
okay.
kickoffs, so you don't get the
Yeah,
hold
but
arrow.
that's a lot of adrenaline. I don't mind running out the field to hold. That means we're getting points. But I'm not having to. My leg is. I don't have to ice it. There's no dirt on my uniform except for where my knee was down, right when I'm holding. But um, listen, Patrick Mahomes Jr. out there in Nebraska right now, he's playing really well, right? Give him a lot of credit. I think he's second in the nation in passing. I think he's got 11 touchdowns to 1 interception. He's completing almost 76% of his passes. They're electric out there, man. I know Cincinnati was a tough game. That was a game a lot of people had circled on the calendar. Like, hey, watch out. The Bearcats aren't bad. They won that one. They played Michigan very close last week. It was a very good game. And I think that was sort of when I started taking a closer look at Raiola, and I'm saying, hey, he's playing some good football, and he played well enough for them to win. They just couldn't quite get it done. But, it's crazy looking at Michigan State. They haven't made a ton of noise. Their defense hasn't been good. Aiden Childs has been consistently, scoring touchdowns, not a lot of interceptions. He's just under 70% completion percentage. But both these teams only have one loss. So the winner of this game coming out is going to say, hey, we're looking pretty good in the Big Ten. And anything happens, right? You got to play these conference games. But I'm pretty sure Nebraska is the favorite right now, heavily. There's a reason for that. I think this offense is spectacular. What Vincent alluded to, what SC was able to do them 2 weeks ago, I think Nebraska is just as good offensively. So not really too high right now on the Spartans, but you never know what happens. I think Nebraska is a pretty good team in the Big Ten. They could maybe sneakily be one of those teams that we're talking about in December as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks are going, well, we don't know on the road. We just don't know if Sparty's got it. But it opened at 10.5. It's 11.5 right now. That's what the spread is. And I'm just not so sure about the Childs, and his numbers are a little bit below average, and Raiola is a little bit above average. 11-1, that's a great ratio, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned that in terms of his efficiency, and he's hitting 3 out of 4 instead of 2 out of 3, which any quarterback now that's just unheard of. But it's becoming so normal now. There's so many guys that are able to do that. It'll be tough to stop. Memorial Stadium, 4:00 kick, ladies and gentlemen. This one's a little bit of a unique time. Normally you see a 3:30 kick, but this one will be in Lincoln. 88 degrees and warm will be the expected temperature there. All right, final game that we're going to look at, guys. Let's talk about Minnesota going out to Columbus, going east for that. Do you think the Buckeyes coming back from a long trip to Washington might be a little gassed, and this could be kind of a trap game? Or is this one of those ones where they're going to, we're focused, we know exactly what we're doing, we are ready to roll? Minnesota is 3-1 right now, and they're going to go against the undefeated Buckeyes at 4-0. Brian, we'll start with you on this one. Give me your thoughts here about the Gophers going into Columbus.
Well, Minnesota's been good against the run this year. They've thrown the ball pretty well. Nothing too bad. That's why they're 3-1, right? They're playing the pretty good football, but this Ohio State team is giving up less than 6 points a game. They're giving up less than a touchdown a game right now. They're at home. They got a ton of momentum. This is a game where prime time, 7:30. They're feeling really, really good. This is one of the games on the schedule that they're probably thinking, hey, we're not really too worried about this one. But I think it'd be a little bit better of a football game than a lot of people are looking at right now and saying, like, hey, Ohio State's got easily, but Minnesota's played some good defense too. I think they're giving up less than 17 points a game themselves. That's kind of been the staple for all these Big Ten teams we talked about today, is play some defense, run the ball. It's that style of play that keeps you in the kind of games on the road against the Ohio States, against the Oregons, against the Penn States. I think Ohio State's far and away the better team, I think, here. I think they're the best team in the country. They're ranked there for a reason. But I think Minnesota has a chance to play them tough and kind of say, hey, we're pretty good too. And, to do it on a national stage, I think they're going to hopefully play up to that, up to the hype.
Drake Lindsey, 7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's been sacked 5 times. It's average. He's Minnesota's quarterback. They've only got 7 rushing touchdowns and 8 passing touchdowns in the 5 games. And the reason I bring that up is that they had 66 points against Northwestern State. Bobby Hebert and Ed Orgeron both went to Northwestern State, the Demons there. But against Buffalo, Cal, and Rutgers, very average numbers at 23, 27, 31 points. Nothing to brag about. So, Vincent, I think Brian's somewhat correct in that offensively it'll be a real struggle, especially going against the defenses as stingy as the Buckeyes.
Well, I like what Brian said. Minnesota plays good defense. They got a D lineman and Anthony Smith Jr. that's got 4.5 sacks. But when you look at Ohio State, they've been impressive, man. The win up there in Washington last week opened my eyes because I thought Washington was going to really maybe upset Ohio State.
Was
They
Texas a ho hum win for you? The to open the season against
mm-mm,
Arch Manning, was that a ho hum game or was that no
no,
no they're for real?
no. I was still thinking Ohio State had a way to go. I just thought Arch Manning didn't play great.
Yeah,
And when you look at go back in that football game, I believe Texas was twice inside Ohio State 5 yard line. I know they got stopped on downs one time.
couldn't put it in the
So
end zone.
right,
Yeah.
so Texas had shots in that football game, but no, I just wasn't. I didn't think Ohio State coming out of that football game, they totally dominated them in certain aspects of the game, but I didn't think they was that much better than Texas. I just think Texas didn't make the plays in that game. But last week against Washington, they proved me wrong. That was a good team. Washington they had been scoring a lot of points. And most of all, Matt Patrice, I didn't think he'll come over and be that, I want to say, a, a really good stable defensively for them, replacing Jim Knowles, who went on to Penn State. But man, they've been playing great defense. 5.5 points as you just seen giving up. Caleb Downs is playing at another level. They got another first round pick. What's the kid named Caton Curry? They had 3 sacks against Washington, the D lineman. And when you look at Julian Sand, it's starting to get better. And the ball has started going to Superman. We know who he is out of Miami Gardens, Florida, who should have went to the U, Jeremiah Smith. Ohio State, after last week, clearly put me in the mind of being the best team in the country. And I'm gonna leave it at that. I think they coming. I think they coming, and I think they're gonna make a statement in this game. As much as I think Minnesota has got a good football team, I think Ohio State is gonna show the country really after the Washington game. We're consistent over here in Columbus. Woody Hayes is coming out, is coming down and looking on us. The 68 Super Sophomores. Back to you, Hop.
Well, a loss at Cal Berkeley really hurt Minnesota, I think. 27-14 was the final there. They take on the Buckeyes this week. Then they got Purdue, Nebraska, Iowa, Michigan State. So 4 games in a row against unranked conference opponent. Then they play the number two team in the nation. They got to go out to Eugene and play Oregon. And then they finish at Northwestern and then at Wisconsin. That's a very doable schedule when you look at Minnesota. I mean, you got 2 rough games against the number 1 and number 2 team in the country. But if you lose both of those, you win everything else, you still got 3 losses, and 2 of them are in the conference. That's going to be tough to rebound. Brian, final thoughts?
Well, I'll just say this, Ohio State. We could talk about Arch Manning. I don't think he's healthy. I think he's got a shoulder issue that they're not really disclosing right now. But they
Is
buckled
that
down
why
when they
he's
needed to.
throwing every pass he has is a
He's
different launch
wincing a
angle?
lot too. Yeah, I mean he's missing the easy ones. But give credit to Ohio State's defense. They played very very well. Their offense was not great that day, but they've yet to give up double digit points this season. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same. If they keep the same tune against Minnesota, I'd be very surprised if Minnesota is able to get find pay dirt more than once. I'll put it that way because man, these guys in Columbus right now are flying around on the defense side of the ball. The offense isn't quite there. I mean, they blew out Grambling, but once they fully figure it out on the offensive side of the football, this team is going to be very, very good.
Vincent, the teams that get the week off here and have a bye, it's Oregon, Indiana, Iowa, USC, and Rutgers. There's 7 games. There's going to be 5 teams that get a bye this week. Oregon, I think, would really relish having that time off right now. Indiana as well. Both of them have played well enough to be able to earn that first of the 2 byes. But any final thoughts here before we go regarding the bye teams?
Well, I think next week the bye teams. I think Indiana plays Oregon. I think it's going to be the game of the year in the Big Ten, and I'm gonna be excited to see that game. I wish I had some tickets to go out there to Eugene because that's going to be some game, and I want to see Fernando Mendoza. This is what I'm gonna say about that. If he plays at the level that he plays at, and I'm not saying Indiana wins the game, but let's say you have a good game, he throw 350. He's my Heisman candidate to win the Heisman Trophy.
Really? You're going to
Yes,
go with
sir.
Mendoza this early? Okay, not a bad
Yeah.
one. But yeah,
Yeah.
I like the fact that the way they work the schedule out. Both teams get a bye week at the same time, and how they manage it, it's up to them. But having one team that didn't have a bye going against another that is coming off especially a road win, I don't like that much. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think as far as just in with the buys, keep it balanced. Make it to where we don't give teams an advantage. Or let's say if you have a bigger game like the Ohio State Michigan game, give both teams a buy. You know what I mean? So you have
Mm-hmm.
equal time to prepare. Let's put the best product on the field. But a lot of Big Ten football ahead of us. A lot of games left. Teams are still going to have to win 7 or 8 games in order to make it to the conference championship and hopefully the playoff. But it's gonna be another week. I think it's gonna be a good week of football, good week of games. We got some good matchups, and I'm looking forward to Saturday.
Yeah, you got multiple teams that are ranked right now. You got the number 1 and number 2 team in the country. Number 3 is not that far behind. Penn State obviously slipped last week with their loss, but no reason to be disappointed if you're just a Big Ten fan. There's a lot of great football, as Brian was saying, and as Vincent put together, there's some things that'll be happening in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to go over all that with you. We want to say thank you for tuning in. We appreciate Dave Hoffman and everything that he did to put this Big Ten show together. Again, he is on assignment. He is not able to be with us, but we certainly miss him. And so filling in for him is Vincent Turner and Brian LeBel. We appreciate both of you being a part of the show as well. This has been the Big Ten Conference Weekly Preview, and we get to go over Week 6 here on 100 Yards of Football. We appreciate you folks being a part of the show. We hope you have a